Hello and welcome back to Mr. Mohair Music, and today we are going to be looking at the composer Camille Saint-Saëns. I want you to be able to identify different animals in music. I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute, but let's look at Camille Saint-Saëns first. He was a Romantic era composer from Paris in France. He was born on the 9th of October 1835 and died on the 16th of December 1921. He wrote a piece of music called The Carnival of the Animals. So let's have a look at that piece of music. The Carnival of the Animals is a large piece of music. It has 14 movements in total, and today we're going to listen to all 14 movements, to listen to all of the different animals. And you're going to be looking at the tempo, the speed of the music, and thinking about the animals. So if you've got, let's take an elephant, a large animal that moves quite slowly, you would imagine that the music would move quite slowly as well. Let's think about dynamics. If we've got think of maybe a small animal, let's go for a mouse. You'll probably have a really quiet piece of music for a mouse because they move quite quick, but they're very small and they don't make much sound. So the composer for these pieces has thought about those things. He's thought about the tempo, about how the animals move, what speed they move, and matched it, and how loud or quiet they are, and matched his dynamics as well. I also want you to think about the instruments that are used. Now, there's not that many instruments that are used in this piece. You'll be able to spot them when you watch the video. There's not many at all. But first, I think I'll help you out by going through each of the 14 movements before you have a listen to them and explain just a little bit about each one. And then you can get started on this task. So, as he was French, all of the pieces are titled in French. I'm going to use the English title. So, the first movement, Introduction and the Royal March of the Lion. It's a very bold introduction. The piano starts off really strong, and as the lion is considered to be the king, you kind of hear royal, regal aspects in the music. The pianos then introduce the main marching theme, and that carries on through most of the rest of this introduction piece. It's a very loud section, and it sounds very proud. The next section, Hens and Roosters. This is an amazing section because in the music you can actually hear the sounds of the hens pecking, and you can also hear roosters crowing, so listen carefully for those bits. Movement number 3. In this section it's just the pianos, and you can hear the animals running. It's very short and very fast. It's very interesting, this section. Wild donkeys, swift animals. Movement number 4 is a huge contrast because it's tortoises. It's so much slower. It kind of casually moves along. But the piece is very clever because it includes another piece of music. If you listen really carefully to the beginning of it, you'll hear a very slow version of a piece of music called Galop Infernal. You probably know it as the Can-Can, written by Offenbach. This composer, Saint-Saëns, uses lots of different bits of other music in this piece for you to try and spot. Let's move on to movement number 5. The Elephant. The double bass takes pride of place in this and sounds just like an elephant. You can hear it moving slowly. Again, the composer has taken another piece of music and hidden it in his composition. This time he's taken a piece that's normally played on high woodwind instruments such as the flute, and arranged it in the double bass part. So he's taken it from being really high pitch to really low pitch. So that's really interesting. Next, kangaroos. Well, you know what kangaroos do? They hop around. And you can hear that all the way through this piece. Watch out though for some big tempo changes in this. Stuff speeds up and slows down all the time. But it's a lot of fun. Next, aquarium, and it's time for an underwater journey. You can hear water moving. There's descending runs, so starting higher pitch and getting lower all the time. And the glockenspiel features really heavily in this section and adds a lovely layer over the top of the sound. It rings out. Next, characters with long ears. Well, it's talking about donkeys, this section, and it's the shortest movement. It's really quick. So listen out for it, and listen out for the donkey's sounds. Can you hear any hee-haws in this? Next, the cuckoo in the depths of the wood. This is a softer piece of music. The piano set the scene for the woods, and you can hear a clarinet over the top. It's mimicking the sounds of the cuckoo. Now, the composer states in the original score that the clarinet should be played off stage, so it sounds like it's hidden deep in the woods. The next movement, Avery, we take to the sky with the birds, and the flute does an amazing job here. Very fast, you can hear it fluttering around, flying around throughout this whole section. It is a very tricky part to play on the flute, but sounds amazing. You can hear the birds. This is followed up by a section that you may think sounds a bit strange. It's entitled Pianists. This is meant to be a funny section, taking the mick out of pianists, saying they're like animals. It's designed to sound like they're practicing the pianos, practicing the scales, and all the other things that pianists practice. And it's meant to sound like there's some mistakes in it. It's meant to sound like a beginner. It's meant to be a funny section. The next section is called Fossils, and in this section Saint-Saëns takes a piece of his own work and hides it in here. He uses some of his composition from Danse Macabre and uses the xylophone really well in this. And this section's designed to sound like bones or skeletons. And he kind of describes in Danse Macabre how skeletons are playing cards, and he's used that in this piece. But he also uses some other tunes in here, some French nursery rhymes. You might be able to recognise a few lines of them, and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is in here as well. See if you can spot that. Next, the Swan. Here is where the cello gets to shine. The piano plays all the way through this long rippling section and sounds like the water's being moved as the swan, played on the cello, moves through it. And then we get to movement number 14, the finale. This is a really fun section full of scales, glissandos, trills, loads of technical musical stuff. But more importantly for you, it includes lots of little quotes from what we've already heard. Listen out for the lions again, the donkeys, the hens, the kangaroos, and the work finishes with the donkey again. You get to hear 6 hee-haws from the donkey before the final chord. It's like the donkey is having the final laugh in the piece. So this is a fantastic piece of music. It's a long piece of music, but there's 14 completely different bits for you to listen to. So you can either listen to it all the way through, or you could listen to my introduction to the piece and then listen to the piece. It is entirely up to you how you want to do it. So it's about half an hour, but because there's 14 pieces, the shortest piece is about a minute and the longest is 3. So a lot to listen to. There's a worksheet that you can print out from the description box below, or you can just write it out, up to you. But enjoy this piece. It is fantastic and well worth listening to the whole thing.